Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, thank you. Sorry that I was a little late. Today is Kindertag, or Children's Day. So the kids have their spiritual gifts at the back of the room. Let's see how peaceful they remain. You understand English, not German, huh? And Mataji also don't understand German. So Rosemary seems to be ready to translate for our Kishorikun. Is it like this? And Parampurusha. Okay, so we have 2 and 2. And Shamanandini also doesn't speak German. Okay. Could you come a little closer, Shamanandini, because I think there's not many more. Not many more devotees come in, let's say. So, yeah. Okay, so I will speak English. But where there is something I'm saying, Rosemary, that you don't understand, just wave your hand, okay? But Rosemary is a good translator. So today, wow, it's a very big Srimad Bhagavatam. Take my smaller one from home. So today we read from the 4th canto, which is entitled The Creation of the Fourth Order. Canto 4, chapter 3, entitled Talks Between Lord Shiva and Sati. Text 8. Yes, God. It says text 9, but it's because it's the beginning of text 8. Okay, text 8, very good. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so Satyavacha Prajapataste sa surasya sampratam. Prajapataste svasuru. That's quite a long one. Let's do it again. Prajapataste svasurasya sampratam. Prajapataste sas. Niryapito yagya mahotsava kila. Nirapito yagya mahotsava kila. Vayam cha tatra pisharama vamate. Vayam cha tatra pisharama vamate. Yadeyata atitami vibhuda vrajantihi. Yadeyata tami vibhuda vrajantihi. Anybody want to try? Sacha vocha Prajapataste sasurasya sambratam. Niyapito yagya mahotsava kila. Vayam cha tatra pisharamavamate. Yadiyatitami vibuddha vrajantihi. Satyavacha. Ladies? Satyavacha. Shh. Yam cha tatra pisharamavamate. Okay. Oh, Satyavacha. Okay, word by word. Satyavacha. Prajapate of Daksha. Oh, sorry. Sati said. Prajapate of Daksha. Te yo. Svashurasya of your father-in-law. Sampratam nowadays. Niryapitaha has been started. Yagya Maha Utsava, a great sacrifice. Kila, certainly. Vayam, we. Cha, and. Tatra, there. Abhirasharam, may go. Vama, oh my dear Lord Shiva. Te, your. Yadi, if. Atita, desire. Ami, these. Vibuddha, demigods. Vrajanti, are going. He, because. Translation. Sati said, my dear Lord Shiva, your father-in-law is now executing great sacrifices, and all the demigods, having been invited by him, are going there. If you desire, we may also go. Charu Murari, you must stop speaking now, okay? Or whisper only. I can hear you, so it means you're too loud, okay? Sorry, once again. Sati said, my dear Lord Shiva, your father-in-law is now executing great sacrifices, and all the demigods, having been invited by him, are going there. If you desire, we may also go. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sati knew of the tension between her father and her husband, but still she expressed to her husband, Lord Shiva, that since such sacrifices were going on at her father's house, and so many demigods were going, she also desired to go. But she could not express a willingness directly. And so she told her husband that if he desired to go, then she could also accompany him. In other words, she submitted her desire very politely to her husband. Shri Chaitanyam Namo Bistam Shtatipamena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Dati Swapadandikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, dear devotees, please give blessings after a fasting day to give lecture. I didn't do the full fast, but it is my first fast in my 43 years that I had a only fruit and nut one. If you know me, that you know I need strong food to keep me down. So, so now we are post Ekadashi fasting, many of us, and in one sense, it's purifying. We are here now to listen to the Srimad Bhagavatam. At this point in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is Sati's turn to speak to Lord Shiva. In this verse, it's addressed that she had a strong desire, but she submitted her desire very politely to her husband. And I was listening to a class online about this verse, and it spoke a lot, Hare Krishna, it spoke a lot about this element of politeness. So today we discuss, Rosemary, do you translate? Yes, okay. Sorry. No problem. No, because ich habe nur gerade gesagt, dass wir fangen an mit diesem Vers, aber es fängt an mit Sati zum Sprechen und sie spricht über diesen Punkt. Is the correct translation for politeness Höflichkeit? Höflichkeit. So today we speak, so today we speak on this point, politeness. You know, I thought, why not? You ladies, you can come a little closer because we're just a few of us here, unless you're too shy. If it's okay. Shamakunda. So those, please don't run away, but those who don't know, I usually give an interactive Srimad Bhagavatam class. And we have, it is part in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's quite dramatic now. Huh? We are on the point where Daksha, the father-in-law of Lord Shiva, does not invite Lord Shiva, but invites seemingly everybody else to a big yajna celebration. And Sati, his daughter, finds out, and she also wants to go. And in this, we have this element where she politely questions or asks Shiva. Later on, there is a point where Shiva, going on Vaishnava etiquette, explains he cannot go because he's not been invited. That is the very culture of this etiquette. If you have not been invited, then you cannot go. Sati, of course, goes anyway, and it's a little disastrous. But at the beginning, she is addressing this point of politeness. And on the lecture I heard by, I've forgotten the name, Bhagavat Chaitanya Maharaj? Sorry, it will come to me. He speaks about British etiquette. Apparently, because I'm the only British one here for the last 11 years, the British politeness is something which is a very integral part of society, and it's based on the cultural understanding of what goes on. So, for example, here we once had a yoga class, and most of the ladies were standing on one side, and then Prabhu's on the other side. But there was one Prabhu who was standing on the ladies' side. So I said to him, would you mind to stand over there? And 3 German devotees, ladies and men, said, why don't you just ask him to move on the correct side? And I looked at them because I was a little bit overwhelmed, 3 people speaking. We don't do that in England. It's always like, would you mind? Could you? Like, to the point that I began to understand in different cultures, they're not sure what I mean. Bashar, for example, asked me why I keep apologizing. But I looked it up, it's very normal. Can you help me? Sorry, I just need a minute. Sorry, I'm just going to be with you. Sorry, how can I help you now? It was like a whole integral part of how we speak to one another. Now, of course, Vaishnava etiquette and culture is quite different. However, there is a certain element of where words are spoken in such a way that one accepts it. Sati doesn't just go and say, look, I married you, I want to go, let's go. It is a whole art of how one speaks to one another. If you do a Veda-based search for the word politeness, it comes up a lot. So, before I dive into the different ways of how it comes up, I wanted us to do a brainstorm. Luckily, I imagine it's rosemary already prepared. It's empty. Just need to get a chalk. This I didn't prepare earlier. Oh, thank you, Rosemary. So, in a moment, can you just think, spiritual or other, this word politeness oder Höflichkeit. Wir sprechen über das Thema Höflichkeit. What does it mean to you to be polite? Where Ramananda, my husband, makes fun of me that sometimes I try to make a whole seminar in one class. But this is what does it mean to be... Oh, you have something? You're Czech? Aha, so what is it in Czech? What's the word? Solution. Sounds almost like solution, no? Solution. Okay, so what is it to be polite? Okay, Amrita.
It's to respect others.
Oh, very good. Be respectful.
Yes.
This is a good point. We can easily see that in Shastra and our verses. We say every day that we try to give respect to others without expecting respect for oneself in return. So this is a basic one, be respectful.
To me came first, be kind in a heart. Kind in the heart? Yeah, that was like... For me, like when it came this in the heart, it means that you really feel for this person, like to act what is the best for all. That was like from inside of you. So it's not superficial.
Not superficial.
Yes.
Very
but
nice.
You really feel like, I would like to do something. What is best for the person I kind of interact with.
It's very nice.
That's in the heart for me.
That's very nice. You've gone into, I like this one better. You've gone into already a deeper level of politeness. That's very nice. That's very nice. Somebody else we will go back to it. Somebody else wanna say, Shamakund. No, yeah. Shamakund. Is your brother Radhakund?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. Because he has a twin, I thought maybe.
Yes, but I'm tolerant.
Tolerant. Being polite is being tolerant. Can you explain?
Like to accept others as they are, not judge them. As
they are. Okay. Very nice. I think I wrote tolerate. Gabriel, what is it to be polite in the garden department? I'll come back to you. What is it in nature? But don't run away. Kids, can you think of something? What is it to be polite? Polite, what does it mean? Höflichkeit, Shara.
Nice.
Huh?
Nett.
Net, be kind. Kind, like Shamanandini said, kind. Höflichkeit, here in the German corner.
Well, it's maybe not such a basic, but talk with a smile.
Yes, it came up when I did a search on it, Rosemary. Talk with a smile. What sort of smile? Like a
real smile from the heart,
genuine,
not superficial.
genuine smile.
Also ein echtes Lächeln.
Genuine.
Willst du was sagen?
Shri Shri Prahlad Lakshmana Shingadeva Ki Jai. Kishorikun, wenn ich würde dich sagen, dass jemand war ganz höflich. Was bedeutet das?
Höflichkeit im Garten oder was meinst du?
Ne, überall.
Höflichkeit, dem anderen achtend gegenübertreten und ach so, ja, Entschuldigung, dem anderen achtend gegenübertreten und seine Dinge, die ihn bewegen, auf die eingehen und vergehen, ihm dabei zu helfen.
Rosemary, can you translate? Because it was a bit. Wait, in the microphone.
To step towards
Murari.
to step towards the other person with respect, Achtung.
To be
attentive.
Okay, I thought there was a word I didn't understand. To be attentive. Aha.
Achtung.
Meinst du, wenn jemand spricht mit dir oder zum Hören, was die andere sagt? Ja?
Yeah, Achtung is like respectful also. I mean a different...
But attention, because we had
yeah.
that, but attentive is also nice.
Yes, attentive.
Attentive is also...
Aufmerksam eigentlich.
Aufmerksam, very nice. Bashar? Sorry, I know most of your names.
I was curious to know the meaning in Sanskrit. And one is namra,
Nambra.
which means also humble or submissive.
Nambra.
And the other one is Sabhyatma. Namra is like submissive or humble.
Mm-hmm.
And Sabhyatma, like Sabhya, Atma. So Atma means self, and Sabhya means civilized. So
Civilized self.
Civilized or suitable to a good society, or gentleman-like.
Oh, nice. That's very nice. Oh, Prabhupada said we should be like gentlemen and gentle ladies. Huh? Gentlemen.
Not vulgar.
Huh? Sorry?
Not vulgar.
Not vulgar. Okay, just in this corner we can put the things we shouldn't be, huh? So not vulgar. What's the opposite of polite? Rude, yeah, this is the word. What's rude in German? Unhöflich. Oh, nothing, not a little bit more strong.
Frech.
Polite, frisch, huh? Frisch. Rude. Yeah, but in English? Grob. But really the opposite, polite is the nice part and rude is really the opposite, you know? It says it almost how you say it, rude. He was just rude, you say.
Offensive.
Offensive, ooh. Ignorant of the sort of social Vaishnava etiquette. Very nice. Funnily enough, I had be respectful and be kind as the first two on my list. I also had paying obeisances. It's like a form of politeness, to show basic respect to others. When we go into that level, we understand that in the outside world, if somebody comes and sees, Bashar's guru comes along and he drops to the floor, paying his obeisances. They're like, oh my goodness, what's going on there? You know, what's happening? And then you see another Vaishnava, and you both drop to the floor and pay your obeisances. What's going on there? And at the beginning, one can see that is actually a part of our etiquette, a part of politeness. But later on, as Shamanandini made this point, we do it because it's from the heart. We do such things because from the heart we're very happy to see the other devotee, and naturally we drop to the floor and pay our obeisances to one another. So in one sense we can understand that our Vaishnava etiquette takes it to another level of being. Interestingly, I looked up politeness in ISKCON, and I came up with one article which spoke about why are devotees rude in a temple? I was like, what? When I was a visitor in a temple, I don't remember many people being rude. I met a couple of mad people, but not rude. But living in the temple day to day, definitely there was more than one time I was yelled at, so shouted at, or where somebody was quite vulgar and rude. And the reply that's in this article, which is very interesting, is also about the fact that it depends on which level of devotees we are. At the very beginning, when we change our lifestyle and we become a devotee, we're at that very early stage of that neophyte level we're trying. Then suddenly, through the chanting and other methods, something comes up in our consciousness. And at that point where we are disturbed, it's easy when we interact with many others that we pass on that disturbed nature like this. This is one level where one can understand it. Shamakun mentioned this point, being tolerant and accepting others as they are. So it's like this. In this temple, we have so many different personalities here. We have engineer, are you engineer-based, Bisha? Some sort of engineer, we have a gardener, our Gabrielle there, an artist, a healer, business degree major, a Baustelle person, a lawyer, different types of personality we have in one room. When I worked as a designer, one saw that generally the culture and understanding was basically the same. It was like, as a graphic designer in a book world, it's basically very peaceful. Nobody really goes too deep into a conversation, but everything is sort of, as to say, superficially well. And everybody survives in this culture. Then we enter into a temple with our different backgrounds, our states of being, and our different culture. So now we have Czech, Croatian, German, half Palestinian, Jordan, different ways of being. If I hadn't, sorry, have to throw it all in, but it is different, Why somebody asked me, why do I keep saying sorry? And I'm like, I've always said sorry, but it's just how I speak, or why some parents made a little fun because it's important that my children learn to say Hare Krishna, thank you, please, along these lines of the way, but it's a general element of our etiquette. And all of these on the left-hand side, at least most of them, you will see them in Shastra. So be respectful, we spoke about already. Kindness, that's a basic a quality of a Vaishnava, as well as being tolerant. Talk with a smile, I think this goes on being friendly, like this. Attentive is also a subtle element of this sort of being conscious, right? To be fully conscious where one is. Then we have the other sides. Also in Nectar of Devotion, we have another word here. So, in chapter 21, Qualities of Sri Krishna, it says, a person who can speak meaningful words and with all politeness and good qualities is called Vavaduka, or fluent. There is a nice statement in Srimad Bhagavatam regarding Krishna speaking politely. When Krishna politely bade his father, Nanda Maharaj, to stop the ritualistic offering of sacrifice to the rain god Indra, a wife of one village cowherd man became captivated. She later thus described the speaking of Krishna to her friends. Krishna was speaking to his father so politely and gently that it was as if he were pouring nectar into the ears of all present there. After hearing such sweet words from Krishna, who will not be attracted to him? So later on it says the words of Krishna, the way his words can immediately solve all the questions and all problems of the world. Although he does not speak very long, each and every word from his mouth contains volumes of meaning. These speeches of Krishna are very pleasing to my heart. So one sees that actually there is a deeper meaning behind it all as well. As we mentioned, it can come from the heart as well, but this basic sort of idea of being polite or respectful is generally... Chara Murari, keep it quiet. Murari, du kannst zu Daddy gehen, okay? I think, it's okay, Charu, let Amrita go, it's okay. I think Charu Murari probably lost. There is a Krishna version of Snakes and Ladders, which I got them. Apparently it's based on, but Murari at 5 doesn't really get losing. But they have to learn apparently, so this is the words. Amrita can speak very sweetly. She will please Murari's heart, I'm sure, with her words. So she she goes in such a way. Okay. Yeah. So as a mother, one also has to learn to try to speak politely and sweetly. Sometimes it doesn't always work with 2 boys, so one has to go in a different direction. But Ramananda can usually be polite but to the point, and then they get it quite well. And from a mother, normally the expectation is that we soothe any pains that the child has with sweet words. And in this way, one feels that one can say, well, I've come to Srimad Bhagavatam class and you speak on politeness. There's nothing more or deeper, but these subtle parts of our spiritual life help us a lot. Imagine where also, Bashar mentioned this point, the opposite of being polite is offensive. Now most of us are at this stage that actually we are riddled with the offenses that we have committed before, after, knowingly, unwillingly, unknowingly, along the way. So sometimes this element of being polite can help us in difficult times. I find personally here Lord Nrsingadev tests us, that just, maybe also Krishna, that just when you're feeling the most finished or lost, then at that point there's some more demands, where someone comes and says, hey, by the way, why don't you do... I think I just wrote to somebody here to say, oh, okay, Vaishnava Seva, let's remember. and I made joke, but I meant that really in this way, where to keep this element of politeness in difficult times it seems to really be the test. Even in this point where Nectar of Devotion discusses, where Krishna speaks to his father, it's about, stopping the sacrifice to Lord Indra. He speaks. I see Amrita's words of politeness, I hope, helped the matter here. So where Krishna is speaking to his father, it's a serious topic. It's not that the extreme version of British politeness is that you're so polite that you don't say anything in what you want to say. Like, oh, hello, excuse me, would you mind? I was just thinking about whether I could maybe, and it goes on like this. That's like really an extreme. This is like a typical, what one would say, a very old English gentleman might say. And to the end, you don't know at all what they're asking for. So we're not talking about this, but we're moving to a level of politeness, which is maybe also poetic, to the way that someone, of course Krishna is our expert, but Krishna can say things that expresses his meaning without the use of force. There's also an example of the Gopis from Srimad Bhagavatam, where they also actually, they're quite angry at Krishna because Krishna has left them for so long. But they still address him politely. And they also address him in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto as the third person. Huh? How do we deal with this person who has treated us in this and this a way? How do we, they say directly to him, how do we address somebody who is like that? They don't say how you have treated us. So it's another form of politeness, that they're not directly accusing him, but they say it in such a way where they can understand. Later on, early in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it also speaks about a householder. This is in the 5th canto, 26:35. So, according to the Vedic etiquette, even an enemy who comes to a householder's home should be received in such a gentle way that he forgets that he has come to the home of an enemy. A guest who comes to one's home should be received very politely. If he is unwanted, this is funny, the householder should not stare at him with blinking eyes, for one who does so will be put into hell, known as Padavatana after death, and their many ferocious birds like vultures, crows, and cockneys will suddenly come upon him and pluck out his eyes. Sorry, just a little to wake us up in the morning. But it's really an extreme level, of why one should remain polite. That's like quite a heavy punishment to have one's eyes plucked out. So it's this level of in one sense, when we hear about being respectful to others and not expecting respect in return, an element of that is treating others kindly, although they have not treated us kindly. And that is a very hard thing for most of us in life. I think it was a disciple of Radhanath Swami that said, when we are provoked, it's like we want to remain calm and cool and together. And we want to be like, and he had with him a bottle of still water. He said, when we shake that, like a lot, and somebody also comes us and really gets on our nerves, we want to be able to open a bottle and it's fine. But most of us, unfortunately, are like a bottle of Sprite or limo or Coca-Cola. You shake it a lot, you open it, and it's explosion. It's like a whole. He said we want to be like this, but we're more on the other side of it. How is it? He spoke about how do we live our lives where we are. I don't think it was the exact word, but it's more proactive rather than reactive. So we don't react to the situation, but we more take the role as the observer. And we see, okay, what's happening now here? I was doing okay, what's happening with the other person? Okay, they look quite tired, probably that's why they're starting yelling at me, and I did something not to that level which they're treating me in this way, but let me just take a step back here. Rather than, like for example, one tip is also to say, okay, perhaps we should talk about this later. I mean, if the person is furious, they will follow you. But otherwise they might say, yes, that's a good idea. It's happened to me a couple of times also in the ashram, and someone comes back and says, I'm so sorry, at that time I was not doing good and I just needed to take a rest. It's typical in life. Or if it's like long-term, one sees, okay, what's going on where I don't have to be affected by this. In politeness, one can easily get out of a bad situation. We can talk about that if you would like, but it's this element of understanding that we're all developing as people, and sometimes it doesn't go exactly to plan, and to give that break. Sometimes I am very direct, to the point, and in England they used to call me very German, but for me it was just a case of, I took a little bit to heart when I read in Nectar of Devotion that we should be straightforward with our dealings. So sometimes I have had, even sort of hardcore devotee days, I went to a tutorial with my art mentor at that time. And I came, and I was sort of he almost didn't look at the work, and he started to be like, complain about the work or this and the other. And I looked at him and I said, is everything okay in your day-to-day? And he said, no, actually I just had a car accident and this happened and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I let him speak for some minutes, and then it was out of the way and we could have the tutorial. If I hadn't said anything at that point, I'm sure I would have had a very bad tutorial, because it was just, he had an extreme situation and it went like that. Sometimes it comes naturally, sometimes not, you know. So it's just at this moment to take that step back, be respectful, kind, and following etiquette, just hold back. The last example I'd like to give is from Nectar of Instruction, the first text. I grabbed the first book I had, and it was Nectar der Unterweisung. Unterweisung is instruction in German. And I will read it in German because it just sounds too good. There's some German words which just get to the heart of the matter a little bit more. Okay, so the first verse. Wer einen klaren Verstand besitzt und den Drang der Sprache, die Forderung des Geistes, die Angriff des Sohnes und den Drang der Zunge, des Magens und der Geschlechtsteile zu beherrschen vermag, ist geeignet, auf der ganzen Welt Schüler anzunehmen. So I say the same thing in English. Text 1. A sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's actions of anger and the urges of the tongue, bellies and genitals, is qualified to make principles all over the world. The point there is that I'm speaking particularly in reference today is who can tolerate the urge to speak. It's also the urges of the tongue. This element of, I don't mean to be chauvinistic to our own kind, but sometimes as ladies, we sometimes do have this element to immediately back. Men can also be like this, but I notice with ladies more like, so sometimes just when someone comes to us and to control this urge to immediately leap into retaliation is hard. On the other side, there's quieter types. So I cannot imagine Shamakund maybe shouting at somebody. Maybe he does. But there's other types of us which we take too much, some rude words to heart. And in this other way of politeness or etiquette, we step away from such a situation with the understanding that one is trying one's best, paying our obeisances, and to leave the situation. And not just to leave the situation physically, but also to leave the situation with our mind and heart. Sometimes it's also a real conscious endeavor to literally be like, okay, respect for the other person, dear Lord, please help me with whatever I was meant to learn in this situation, and let's go further on this. In this example in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the class I listened to, it was also explained that Sati goes, very politely asks for permission, but doesn't follow it. So this is part of the story to the elevated soul, but it is that the etiquette isn't followed and sort of disaster ensues at an otherwise auspicious occasion. So in this way, it's very interesting how small, subtle things in our life can have a good and deep and meaningful impact. Any questions? Okay. Shamakund.
Hare Krishna, thank you for inspiring lecture, Mataji. I just want to ask about, is like sometimes beneficial to go to conflict, to accept the conflict? Because from my experience, for example, in book distribution, I met like people who were very offensive towards like even the books and Srila Prabhupada. But at that time I had the understanding that it's best to, like, as you said, like be polite and so on. So I just, like the person even throw the books which I had, throw them on the floor, on the ground. And I just left without saying anything even. And I just want to ask if sometimes it's beneficial, like to
enter into the conflict.
Enter the conflict.
No. in this way, no. It's like when a conflict is with a stranger and that you see that they're aggressive and they're not going to listen, it's like they're blaspheming God. It's better to not try to distribute in this way. However, if you have a conflict with a friend, you know, it's a different story. It might be that you're good friends for some time and they come to you one day and they just suddenly start yelling or something at you. And you're like, you don't, you know, it's like in your Vaishnava heart, you try to forgive them, but you wait for some time and then you try to resolve it. There was also an Harinam in London. They're known for big Harinams. And we were going through one of the largest areas, Trafalgar Square. And the Harinam was big, and we were singing. And then a group of, I quite like gospel choir, but a group of gospel choir singers came in. They started saying, "You are the devil, you are the," to the Hare Krishna, "You are the devil, you are the devil." And it was like, what? And then some other devotees just started chanting louder. So then "You are the devil" was like Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So it was much louder than this. So it wasn't a direct thing, but we were so much more of us and so much louder than they were in this moment. Sometimes you're later, I don't know if it was the same Harinam, another one, I was going in and we were singing and dancing, and during it I got, what we say in England, got bottled. So that means when somebody takes an empty beer thing and whacks you on the head. But we were singing, I didn't even feel it. Someone said, "Oh, the broken glass is on." So it's like, at some moment one keeps going. Sankirtan, I've heard, is much harder in that way, because often you may be alone and there's no others. Generally, on those who are envious, it's also described in Shastra, we keep distance. It may also be in the Vaishnava community, or some people have some issues. We keep a distance from that, because the envy of that nature, you know, why do they need to take your books or throw, you know, they have a lot of anger. I've heard sometimes these people later on sometimes themselves do become devotees because they had such a reaction. They were not like, but that's not our place. Is it even offensive to preach to those who, yes, one of the...
Without faith.
Without faith, You can see without faith.
Yeah. In that situation, I reacted that I simply continued with like book distribution. I went to other people, but that experience stayed in my consciousness, in my mind, and it kind of like I felt like weaker after that. Like
it's a trauma. It's a trauma. It's like as we sort of evolve as a movement, we understand in this level of devotee care that when we have an interaction like that, and it also happens amongst Vaishnavas. When there is a heavy interaction, it weakens us in a sense, because we're attacked on a level where we're open. You go with an open heart almost to distribute a book. We go with an open heart maybe to other Vaishnavas. We're learning now as I think it's a movement that we take care. Generally, if there was a mentor, or at that point, it would be a case where they say, okay, that was intense, take some time, an hour off, chant some rounds, read something from Shastra, build yourself up again. It's not that like once I would say push forward, but like when I got bottled, I didn't feel it, so I could push forward. If I was bleeding, then of course I'd have to, So it is times like that when you go. For me, for example, I had it more unfortunately in the temple where there were conflicts, and that hurt me because it was amongst other Vaishnavas. But it took quite a long time, more time than I'd like to think of. It just took that basic understanding to see that sometimes nobody is completely right or wrong, but we are different personalities and types and expressions. So we have to learn to take a step away from those who make like this. And Krishna also gave you a test in that moment. Just as we tried to push forward the Sankirtan movement, he was like, no, somebody who's completely against it. Would be interesting to speak to a friend of this person to see why. There was probably a big story behind it somewhere along the way where faith was lost. Because other people who don't care, they don't bother, they just say no, right? So he had some story. When I think about such situations where I've had, I normally try to pray for that person as well. Because the pain that others inflict upon us, with deep reflection, it seems that they don't mean to do it. Mostly, It's just that they are so governed by their own levels of abuse or whatever they've experienced, they can no longer see clearly. It doesn't mean that we have to take it upon us, but one can at least get distance to realize that shouldn't have happened, and actually what he did was an extra offense against Prabhupada's books. That's very bad for his spiritual life. But in our compassionate side, we try to pray and also take our distance in this way, to release it also from us. But generally, if something like this, any interruptions we have that don't work, it's good to take a break from it, because otherwise we can just pass it on. I think it happened amongst here. Somebody was heavy with me, and then I went back and said, hey, what's going on? And then it was 3 other people. One was heavy to the other, and then the other was heavy back, and then the other was with me, and somehow, I don't know, luckily, hopefully we broke the chain, and the one who was that with me apologized, the one before. So it's like a weird material, you can pass on energies.
Like chain reaction.
Chain reaction, yeah. Just as yesterday, most of the seniors who were fasting, they had no water, nothing, and then suddenly they have some ecstatic dancing. It's not really off this plane, but first of all, one was thinking, oh, come on, are you serious? We have hardly any energy to move. But that energy was also a good reaction. It was also running around the temple in the end, as were others, So, and it was amazing to think. It was amazing kirtan, considering most people had no. So, you have both ways. We have to try to change it so it's this. But generally, when there is a conflict and you're pushed down, you have to do things which are nurturing in your spiritual life. And Sankirtan is more like charging forward. So that means you might need a bit of a break in the van or wherever you are. That's what I've heard from the others. Yeah. I used to be treasurer here, so sometimes they would come and tell me, oh, it was terrible. Then I had to go in the van and eat something and listen to Prabhupada and read, and then I could go out again. Things like this. So it's like a whole, we're not mechanical robots, We cannot just So,
Thank you very much for answer. It helped.
Thank you. And also artistic types, we are a little of the more sensitive type. I say it's one myself. So we go a little deeper into what is happening. Sometimes it's just, my husband is more, stop thinking about it, it's all okay, everything is good. Do you have a question, Mr. Ramananda Gopal? I have a comment. Oh, comment.
Yeah, it's also it's a question. So let's
7 minutes.
Let's say, what's the difference between politeness and what we're speaking about is now being gentle with our actions and or with our words, what are in some sense actions as well. So the British way of polite would be, oh, do you know your country now belongs to the Queen? Right? And they say, we don't want to belong to the Queen. Oh, well, then we have to fight you.
Oh, yes.
You know, so
we'll meet you at dawn.
It's polite telling somebody, you know, I'm going to, you know, it sounds nice, but still the action is the same vulgar display of power.
It's interesting you say that, because actually in the Mahabharata, it discusses that although they were at war, there was a whole load of military, so to say, etiquette. You know that fighting could only begin at a certain time, it ended at a certain time, it could only be one-to-one combat. I think you couldn't fight an unarmed person. There were many rules that they followed. So there was still intrinsic an etiquette to it. And the British politeness, could be, yes. We'll meet you at dawn with the guns. So in one sense it's still politeness, but yes, one can still cut one with polite. I don't know if one says with polite words. You put the word gentle in there. You know, as Vaishnavas, we try to be kind and considerate and gentle with what we say. There's also this word that's used as a Vaishnava quality, which we don't speak about, which is, I think, is it being meek? That meek and humble. It means that we're not like on the warpath with one another. That even when somebody comes to us, that we try to be humble. It's a little tough for us Kshatriya types to always to be on a more gentle type, but yes, it's an endeavor where we have to continuously strive. Gentleness and politeness definitely goes together. However, again, when we go back to Nectar of Devotion, when Krishna, kids, when, sorry, online.
A little bit more polite.
Oh, yes. Dear Charu and Murari, would you kindly refrain from speaking during the lecture?
Would you kindly shut up?
Awfully kind of you, yes. Thank you. So, you know, like Krishna, in this point where he's addressing his father, he's like changing their whole custom, everything that they're doing, but he still is polite to them. The gopis are actually chastising Krishna in the 10th canto, where they refer to him in third person. You know, they're not exactly, they're being polite, because to say directly to him, how dare you are a complete rascal for leaving us, for being away from us, for us not having your darshan for so long, they do it in a different way. So it's like, sometimes in life one still has to say a point, but it doesn't mean that it has to be on just a low level, but yeah, gentle is there. If somebody is a little round and they say, am I fat? You know, it's untruthful to say, no, you're the skinniest person I saw, but it's like, you know, you look good exactly how you are. You know, you find something.
You look gorgeous.
You look gorgeous. Yeah, I like this word. You look something which is a truthful. It's polite. You know, it's not nice to say to somebody. I've heard other devotees say to others, you know, you're just too big. You'll never marry somebody. You know, and I was just like, no. You know, and the person is devastated, especially ladies if they hear. So it's, you know, there's a whole rhyme and reason, I think, for being polite amongst one another and this. And I don't think it's lying at all. I think it's just that a culture, which seems also, if you read in the Bhagavatam, it's also followed as well. Lord Chaitanya also followed it. I have an example somewhere, but I can read that to you later, because Bashar is waiting. I have 2 minutes left before he goes, 9 o'clock. No, I don't think to say, oh, do you want to say something? No, you have to say something. No, I meant because it's 9 o'clock before the lecture finishes, so everybody can. No, I put you on the spot. Sorry. Now you must say something.
Yeah, no, I
Final
must say
comment.
something. No, maybe I gave the impression that I'm in a hurry because I, was too attentive to you. But yeah, I like the points, and I think we all agree that, sometimes being rude is not the opposite of politeness. Like I can form my words very nicely, but still be rude. Like this example. Oh,
yes.
Mataji, excuse me, but you are too big. You will never get married. This is completely
Ooh,
rude.
this is
Whoever
very
said this,
rude,
but
yeah.
still he or she said it in a polite way. So like I can be polite with you only because I'm tolerant or something, but it doesn't mean that I'm respectful, right?
Mm-hmm. But I do think that the Vaishnava way of politeness is different to that. When we look at the example of doing something from your heart, so being kind with the heart, then the kindness of the heart would not come to saying something like that. It would mean a deeper level of understanding of what that person needs. I think in the outside world, and also British politeness, one can be rude while being polite, so to say. But actually in our way, it's that strive to be, because we spoke more about it, to be respectful. So if someone comes out of this example of being, it's not respectful, although they are polite. And that's a level. When I looked up the dictionary version of what politeness is, it spoke about, do I have it somewhere? Oh, I don't have it. But basically, being kind and respectful with your words as a representation of your cultural values. So something where it's like you're representing a bigger aspect there with politeness by the cultural accepting of this. And funny that you gave this example, Pasha, because I've also had in my life where someone has been, so to say, extremely polite, but very, very rude with what they've had to say, or offensive. And, I don't want to tell you this, but you're so and so and so, I hope you find it, and you're like completely like overwhelmed. So in this way, I think it does move away from the Vaishnava etiquette when it is like this, because what's another word I can use for this? This is like, in English, there's this killing you softly with your with your words. Huh? So it's this we also try to avoid as well. Yeah, it's a subtle way of going in. And kind with the truth. We had this kind in the heart. I wrote kind with the truth. And also to be attentive or to be conscious to someone's needs, then we also don't enter to hurt them with what's needed in that way. Yeah. Oh? But yeah, the very approach with caution. I just wanted to tell you the truth.
But sometimes they say somebody's using harsh words.
They're using harsh words, yes.
Like what exactly would harsh words mean in like rude or something like that?
Harsh words are like heavy words, like, oh, you imbecile. Oh, our swear words, which I don't repeat now, harsh. Oh, you. It's more than rude, yeah. Harsh is like, harsh is maybe definitely not polite. Harsh is like, Bishop comes or someone says, Mataji, would you like to clean up here? I'm like, who the hell do you think you are to tell me what to do? Why don't you do it yourself? Like you blah, 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 blah. Like it's like a little, it normally implicates also a tone of how you would say it as well, harsh. Sometimes the German language has been referred to being a bit harsh. So one has to be very careful of this. I had a culture shock when I came personally, because a little like, But I realized that people don't mean it. They're just saying what they sort of mean. Okay. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, Gita, hopes to be polite.